The horn sounded 3 short blasts across the Ashvale packlands, and every wolf within hearing froze. That sound meant only one thing. The Alpha King's cubs were missing again. Cale Ashvale, the strongest alpha the Northern Territories had seen in a generation, dropped the reports he was reading and ran. His boots hit the stone floor of the pack house hard as he sprinted toward the training grounds, his second in command, Dorian, close behind him. "How long?" Cale demanded, his voice sharp with fear he refused to name. "Less than an hour, Alpha." The nursemaid checked on them and they were gone. Window was open. Cale's jaw tightened. This was the 3rd time in a month that his twins, Ren and Reese, barely 5 years old, had slipped past guards, locks, and watchful eyes. He loved his children fiercely, but their curiosity was becoming dangerous. The forest beyond the pack borders was not a place for small cubs. Rival packs patrolled the edges of Ashvale territory, hungry for any weakness they could find. And deeper in the woods, past the old stone markers, there were things even grown wolves avoided speaking of after dark. Within minutes, warriors poured out from every corner of the pack house. Some shifted into their wolf forms immediately, noses low, searching for any trace of the twins' scent. Others fanned out on foot, calling the children's names into the darkening trees. Cale himself led one of the largest search parties, cutting through the forest with a desperation that made even his most seasoned warriors uneasy. They had never seen their king like this. Hours passed. The sun sank lower. Search parties returned one by one with nothing to report. The twins' scent trail had been picked up near the eastern fence, but it vanished at the creek, swallowed by water and mud. No one thought to look toward the ravine. No one except Lyra. Lyra was not part of any search party. No one had asked her to join, and she would not have expected them to. 3 years earlier, in front of the entire pack, Cale had rejected her as his fated mate. He had taken one look at her, quiet, plain, an Omega, with no impressive lineage and no confidence to speak of, and turned away without a second thought. The pack had watched it happen. Some had pitied her. Most had simply moved on, the way packs do when someone is deemed unworthy of notice. Since that day, Lyra had lived on the outer edge of pack life. She was given kitchen duties and errands no one else wanted. She gathered herbs for the healers, hauled water, and mended torn clothing. No warrior wanted a rejected Omega training beside them, and no one bothered to teach her to fight. She was tolerated, but never welcomed. What no one in the pack realized was that Lyra had spent those 3 lonely years walking the forest by herself, again and again, until she knew it better than anyone. She had no pack duties that required her presence most afternoons, so she wandered instead, memorizing deer trails, hollow logs, the bend of every stream, and the places where the earth dipped low enough to hide a person from sight. The forest had never rejected her. It had never looked at her and found her lacking. Out there, among the trees, she was simply herself, and that was enough. She was returning from gathering healing herbs near the creek when she heard the horn. She stopped walking and listened to the frantic shouts carrying through the trees. Her chest tightened. She thought of the twins immediately, sweet Ren, who always waved at her from a distance, and Reese, who once handed her a crooked flower he had picked without anyone telling him to. Lyra set down her basket and began to search on her own. She moved quietly, the way she always did, staying low and using the paths she knew better than anyone. She was not fast like a trained warrior, and she could not fight if she came across danger, but she could see things others missed. Within the hour, she found a small boot print pressed into the mud near the creek bend, half washed away by the current. Her heart jumped. She kept moving. A little further along, caught on a bramble bush, she found a scrap of blue wool. She recognized it instantly. It was from Reese's favorite jacket, the one he refused to take off, even when it was too warm for it. The trail led away from the paths the search parties had already covered. It led toward the ravine, a rocky drop at the edge of Ashvale territory, where the pack's protective wards grew thin and unreliable. It was a place adults avoided, let alone children. Lyra knew she should turn back and report what she had found, but she also knew what would happen if she did. The warriors would take her information, likely doubt it came from someone like her, and waste precious time reorganizing search parties before acting. Every minute mattered. The twins could not survive alone that close to rogue territory once night fell. So she kept moving. The forest grew darker as she followed the trail deeper, her senses sharp, her steps silent. She caught a scent on the wind that made her stomach drop. Wolves, not from her pack. Rogue wolves, and they were close. She quickened her pace, moving low through the underbrush, careful not to make a sound. Finally, in the fading light of dusk, she saw them. Wren and Reese were huddled together inside the hollow of a fallen tree near the ravine's edge, their small bodies shaking from cold and fear. Wren was crying quietly, her arms wrapped around her brother, who looked just as frightened, but was trying to be brave for his sister's sake. Lyra's heart ached at the sight of them, so small and lost in a place meant for grown warriors. She crept closer, careful to keep her scent low, and knelt beside the hollow. "Wren, Reese," she whispered gently. "It's Lyra. I'm here to take you home." Reese's eyes went wide with relief, and Wren immediately reached for her, small fingers grabbing onto her sleeve as though she might disappear if she let go. "We got lost," Reese whispered, his voice trembling. "We saw a rabbit and followed it, and then we couldn't find the way back." "It's all right," Lyra said softly, pulling them both into her arms. "You're safe now, but we need to be very quiet and very brave, all right? Can you do that for me?" Both children nodded. Lyra could hear the rogue wolves moving through the trees not far away, their low growls carrying on the wind. She knew she could not fight them. She was not a warrior, but she was quick, and she knew this forest better than any wolf, rogue, or otherwise. She shifted into her wolf form, smaller and lighter than most in the pack, and gathered both cubs against her fur, letting them cling to her back and sides. Then she began to move. She did not take the direct path home. She knew the rogues would expect that, and a straight path would lead them right into danger. Instead, she wove through terrain she had walked 100 times before. Narrow game trails, shallow streams that would mask their scent, dense thickets that no warrior on horseback or in wolf form would think to push through. Behind her, she heard the rogues pick up the twins' scent and begin to follow. Her heart pounded, but she did not let fear slow her steps. She thought only of getting the children home safely, of the promise she had made them without saying the words aloud. The journey back felt endless. Branches scraped at her sides, and more than once, she stumbled over roots hidden in the growing darkness. At one point, a rogue wolf broke through the brush behind them, fast and snarling, close enough that Lyra felt its breath at her heels. She surged forward with everything she had, and though its claws caught her flank, tearing through fur and skin, she did not stop. She could not stop, not with two frightened children depending on her. She pushed through the pain, blood soaking into her fur, and kept running until the familiar scent of packland finally reached her. Only then did she allow herself to slow, her breaths ragged, her legs shaking with exhaustion. It was Kale's search party that found them at the edge of the territory, stepping out from the tree line just as the last light of evening faded into night. Kale saw her first, the smaller wolf, bloodied and limping, with his two children safely nestled against her fur. For a moment, he could not move. He could not speak. His children, whom he had feared he might never see again, were alive, safe, because of her. "Lyra," he breathed, the name feeling unfamiliar on his tongue, though he had spoken it once before, 3 years ago, in the cruelest way possible. Lyra shifted back into her human form, wincing as the movement pulled at the wound on her side. Wren and Reese immediately ran to their father, and Kale dropped to his knees to gather them both into his arms, his hands shaking as he checked them over, making sure they were truly unharmed. "We're okay, Papa," Reese said. "Lyra found us. She wasn't scared of anything." Kale looked up at Lyra, who stood quietly a few steps away, blood trailing down her side, saying nothing about the pain she was clearly in. She looked as though she wanted to disappear back into the trees the way she always did, unnoticed, unclaimed, unwanted. "You're hurt," Kale said, rising to his feet. "It's nothing," Lyra said quietly. "I'm glad they're safe." Dorian moved quickly to check her wound, calling for a healer, but Lyra barely seemed to register the fuss around her. She was watching Wren, making sure the little girl was truly all right. the way she had been watching over her for the last several hours. It was Ren who broke the silence that had settled over the group. Still holding tightly to her father's hand, she looked up at him with the honest confusion only a child could carry. "Papa," she said, "why did you say she wasn't good enough? She's the bravest person I've ever met." The question landed heavily in the quiet clearing. Kale felt it settle into his chest like a stone. He looked at Lyra, really looked at her, the way he had not allowed himself to in 3 long years. He saw the exhaustion in her eyes, the blood on her side that she had earned protecting his children, the quiet steadiness in the way she carried herself even now, when everyone else around them was still catching their breath from fear. He had judged her once on a glance, on the whispered opinions of pack elders, who valued strength and status over anything else. He had never once considered what kind of heart she carried, what kind of courage lived quietly beneath her calm exterior. "I was wrong," Kale said, his voice rough. He was not a man who apologized easily, but the words came without hesitation now. "I was wrong about you, Lyra. I'm sorry." Lyra did not know what to say. 3 years of quiet rejection had taught her not to expect kindness from him, and she did not know how to accept it now. She looked away, uncertain, already taking a step back toward the tree line out of habit. But Kale would not let her disappear this time. He crossed the distance between them and gently caught her hand before she could retreat, careful not to touch her injured side. "Let the healer look at you," he said. "Please, stay." For the first time in 3 years, someone in the pack was asking her to stay, instead of watching her go. That night, as the healer tended to her wound in the pack house, word spread quickly through Ashvale territory of what had happened. The rejected Omega, the quiet woman no one had bothered to notice, had walked into danger alone and brought the Alpha King's children home alive. Warriors who had never spoken a kind word to her now looked at her with something like respect. Whispers of doubt turned into whispers of gratitude. Kale did not leave her side that night. He sat near the healer's room, long after his children had been settled safely into bed, turning over in his mind everything he had gotten wrong. He thought of the years he had wasted, the pain he had caused without ever truly seeing the person standing in front of him. When Lyra finally woke, bandaged and resting, she found him still there, waiting. "You didn't have to stay," she said softly. "I wanted to," Kale answered. "I have 3 years of mistakes to make up for. I'd like the chance to start." Lyra studied him for a long moment, searching for the coldness she remembered from that day 3 years ago. She did not find it. Instead, she saw a man humbled, honestly sorry, looking at her the way she had once hoped he would. She did not know what would come next, whether trust could truly be rebuilt after so much hurt, or whether the pack that had once dismissed her would ever fully accept her. But for the first time since the day of her rejection, she allowed herself to hope that things might be different. Outside, the twins slept soundly in their beds, safe, because a woman the world had underestimated had never once doubted herself when it mattered most. And somewhere in the quiet of the pack house, a king who had once turned his back on his fated mate finally understood that true strength did not always look the way he had once believed. Sometimes, it looked like a rejected Omega walking calmly into the dark, unwilling to let anyone be lost.